Welcome to Growth Track. Heartland Church, in partnership with North Central Indiana Bible College, is excited to offer this discipleship program that will include, encourage, educate, and inspire you to be the person God has created you to be. Growth Track is divided into tracks and modules that dive deep into faith, answer questions you have, and connect you with Jesus. Combined with recommended readings, opportunities to grow through service, and a community of believers on the same journey, your transformation is inevitable. If you would like to become a student and earn college credit for this class, go to heartland.church and click on the Growth Track page. There you can see the requirements, application, moral code, and other information about Growth Track. If you prefer to just view this class for your own information and growth, that's great, and we hope this helps you grow. Let's get started.
This is NCIBC Marriage and Family Class, session number 3, and we're glad you're here with us here with Growth Track. A little bit of an announcement. We had a technical difficulty after the last session. We got like now the one mic that's kind of here between us, so it's a little strange with the table. We're making it happen.
Yeah, we're going to talk about problem solving. No, we're not really. We're going to talk about communication. So hopefully you guys can hear us and know what's going on. Obviously, communication is a huge deal with marriage and family, especially. If we don't know how to communicate the needs and the desires and even like actually pertinent information, obviously our families and our marriages are going to suffer. So we're going to talk a little bit about how to make our communication a little bit better.
And I mean, seriously though, we were kind of joking with it, but when you go through stuff, the communications gets ramped up when you go through stuff. When you have a problem to solve, or there's an issue with your children or grandchildren or life or job, that's when the communication does have to be very clear, comforting, understanding. You know, we really got to stretch those communication muscles when we're going through something, because we're going to go through it together.
Absolutely. I'm going to just read the first scripture that we have. It's out of Proverbs 15:1. It says, "A gentle answer deflects anger, but harsh words make tempers flare." And I'm pretty sure that that's obviously a biblical truth, but I think we all probably know that, right? That, you know, a gentle answer, like we need to be gentle in our words to our families, to our spouses. It's just something that we need to make sure that we need to have that godly speech. You know, when we go to God and we have a problem, God doesn't scream and holler at us. He has that gentle answer, even if it was probably a duh moment in our lives. He makes sure that he is so graceful and just filled with grace for us when we do approach him with our situations. So
a gentle answer deflects anger. It just kind of like makes it go somewhere else. But here's the anger and it's going now some other direction. Yeah. But harsh words make tempers flare. So how we say things matters. But I also think we've got to give each other some space to say things not the way they need to be, that they're usually said. Yeah, now, we don't use curse words at each other. We don't speak harshly or in, you know, that kind of stuff, because this verse really, it's very true, and we don't need to make things worse by saying words that are going to hurt.
Right, yeah. And I think even, too, obviously, I know there's studies that, like, I think 80% of communication is nonverbal. You know, there's some things that we need to just like think about our posture, think about our face when we're saying stuff, especially if it's serious stuff. You know, sometimes you just have to put that smile on your face, or having the eye contact is huge. You know, there are people that, you know, go all day and they're taking care of the kids, or they're connecting with, you know, they're going back and forth to work and they don't even necessarily make eye contact with their spouse. That's a huge, nonverbal kind of communication that we need to just make sure that we're careful of those kind of things.
That's really good. In this particular session, too, we want to give you some tips and ways to actually help your communication. I know one of the things that's just really critical when you're communicating is that you know at what level the information is that you're saying. So if you're talking about a really important issue with your children and I don't know, I mean, this is like a critical 10 times or 100 times in your life conversation, that's going to be like a level 9 or 10, right? But not everything is 9 or 10s. There are 1s and 2s. And I think you've got to let people know where kind of we're at in this conversation. I see a lot, we do a lot of marriage counseling. A lot of the times the problem really is when someone takes a level 2 problem and makes it a level 9 problem. It exhausts the communication all the time. Then now if everything's going to set off a nuclear bomb, you don't even want to have a talk. When you have nations at war, you have various threat DEFCONs. I mean, like there are times when it's just behind the scenes and two armies are posturing, and then there's times when they shoot a couple bullets across the thing, and then there's the full-on nuclear ICBMs going over the top. We got to know what level of communication we're having, because a lot of times if someone's, I don't know, not listening clearly, or you'll take that level 2 problem, make it level 9, and really it doesn't have to be at that space.
Yeah, that's good. I know that, and sometimes it might be a level 9 problem, and sometimes it's just like maybe it was just the cherry on the top of that, and it not necessarily be that, but it feels like it emotionally. I think being able to step back and be like, okay, this happened. I wrecked the car. I did this. I did that. And is this really that big of a thing? Kind of being introspective about that and just saying like, yeah, this wasn't really necessarily a big thing, that the trash didn't get taken out, or, something like that. It is not necessarily one of those nuclear button
so many
topics.
times arguments are started by things that they can't even remember what the argument started with. If you have that in your marriage or your family relationships, well, then this is what we're talking about. If you get into an argument, you can't even remember what it started with. That's because we don't have it like in its proper place. The trash being taken out when you asked and it wasn't taken out. Look, that is a 2 or 3. That is hey, would you please, if you could just take the garbage out. I know you forgot. It's okay, no problem. And then is it a little frustrating maybe or annoying? Sure, I can be frustrating and annoying, but it's not worth a nuclear attack. And vice versa. There's going to be different ones of these for husbands and wives, etc. And if we all know where we're at, we all know like this is the level we're at. Boy, now we can communicate. And you might even want to start the conversation out with something like that. This is a really small thing, but it is just a slightly annoying. If you could pick up your clothes from the floor after you're out of the shower, whatever it is, And of course, is that worth having an argument over? No. But if we're going to live together in this house for decades and decades, it probably is something
needs to be addressed.
That needs to be addressed.
Yeah, and I think sometimes we have to be careful about our reactions to those things. When somebody does come to you, whether it be a spouse or a child or even like a coworker or a friend, like let's not get super defensive about things. Let's just be like, okay, they were able to, because I think a lot of times what happens is if you come super defensive, that kind of shuts that communication down. So where they need, to be able to share something with you next time, they'll kind of hedge their bet because the way you reacted to that maybe constructive criticism.
It's good. Another thing about communication, when we are communicating, there are times when there's something that is not what one person or the other has done. It's just a life thing, and I think it's important to communicate that too. I'm not mad at you, or I'm not mad. This is nothing you've done. My life in general, or this could be like a car broke down. That has nothing connected directly to a person. So that's why we've got to even be clear with our communication with that. I'm not frustrated at you, but I am frustrated that this car we've got continues to, blow gaskets or whatever it is. And that way your partner, your spouse, could join with you in comforting or addressing the situation without taking it personally. Whereas, if something, a third situation is not dealt with together, now that thing now has creeped into the relationship and it's split it up, when actually it'd be better to address those things as a common kind of support.
Yeah, and I think too, we really need to focus on our relationship with the Lord and that open communication of God through prayer, being a key to really good communication with our spouse. I know that a lot of times the stuff that maybe I come home from work or something has happened and I'm frustrated, and I could, number one, go to God, get healed up, kind of just like get all that stuff off my chest and then have a communication or a conversation with my husband. Or I could puke all that stuff, vent all that stuff on my husband, and that become kind of that repetitive habit. And I always say that, when we vent to people, we kind of like get it all out there and we feel better about ourselves. We feel better about the situation, but he walks away with like all of my vomit that I've just vomited on him. He has that burden, and vice versa if he would do the same to me. And so I think having that open line of communication with the Lord, saying, God, I need to work through this. He's got the big shoulders. He's okay with that venting, and he's going to pour peace into our lives. He's going to even maybe give us answers to the problems. He might even just settle our souls a little bit. And then we can have that communication with our spouse where, like he's not my therapist, he's my husband, so we want to make sure that we get those roles correct before we go on that communication of, I feel better now, but then he wants to, storm in the office or whatever and fix all these things for me, where that's not really what I even wanted or needed. I just needed someone to kind of listen, if that makes sense.
And that's a great segue, really, because listen tends to be, once again, generically, men want to have an answer to the situation. So if you bring something to me, I'm going to do something about it. I'm not looking. Very rarely would I think that, oh, she's just explaining these things to me so she can get that off her chest. Well, I've made a list in my head of people I got to talk to, things I got to do. We were going to deal with the situation, and really she could just be venting or frustrated and explain those frustrations. So we've even had to do that before, like be real clear in our communication. I'm not looking for an answer, actually. I just want you to listen. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Let's talk.
Yeah.
So some of those things you just basically, and when it comes to communication, you cannot be too clear. You have to explain why you need the communication, what you expect when this communication is done, what action steps need to be taken after this communication. Those things. It sounds like kind of robotic, but you're gonna have a lot better relationship if you go about it in that way than just, I don't know, the Hallmark movie kind of way where everything just happens to work exactly perfectly. That's just not how life is. There's too many voices in the wind. There's too many radio stations you can accidentally dial into in today's chaotic environment. That's why you've got to be so clear with your communication to each other and to everybody else.
Yeah, and I think being a compassionate listener and an active listener is a huge key as well in our marriages, and even as parents. Like, we don't necessarily, like you said, have to solve everything, but we can be compassionate about it. I know that there have been times when I probably have shared silly little things that actually probably were actually silly, but they were big to me. And I think if he would have said like, that's such a little thing, like, why are you even worrying about that? That would have really hurt my heart, And so I think we need to be compassionate about, it might not be a big deal to us, but allow people to, share that, get God involved, pray for them. I think one of the coolest things, I love when I share a struggle that I have and you're like, let's just pray about that. Like, let's just get God involved in that. And I think that we just need to have that compassion of being an active listener, put our phones down, make eye contact, try those disruptions, cut those disruptions out, and also be compassionate.
That's good. James chapter 1, verse 19. Understand this, my dear brothers and sisters. You must all be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to get angry. Quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to get angry. We usually tend to be quick to speak, slow to listen, and quick to get angry. And James is explaining here, that we gotta make sure that listening first. Stop. What was said? Yeah. I've had to, not in our relationship, just communication as a whole. I've had to say, what did I just say? Repeat back to me, because sometimes. Or
what did you hear?
Yeah,
how did you hear?
Yeah, because there's filters, right, between the voice and the ears. Somebody could say one thing and totally be offensive to someone when it really wasn't intended to be so, but they went through so many filters to get to that person.
Yeah.
So first it's like, oh wait a minute, what did you think I said? No, this is what I was meaning. And sometimes we even say the wrong verbiage. Look, That's human. Don't be so mad at people for saying the wrong exact verb. I basically speak for a living and I say the wrong things all the time. So it's just human nature to do that. And so give somebody the chance to like, do you want to say that a little different? Yeah, let me put my thoughts into words a little clearer here, because this is what I tried to communicate.
Yeah, and I think too, we all have different personalities. We all have different communication styles. So like there may be like a heated conversation that you might need to walk away for a little bit and like recollect yourself. I know that I am not very confrontational. So I like my fear would be that I would say something and it would hurt him, and like in the heat of the moment. So there are times when I'm just like, hey, let's talk about this a little bit later. I encourage you, if especially it is a disagreement, like look at each other face to face when you're talking about that. Text messaging, I know it's great, an easy way to communicate, but like when you're in like some sort of heated thing, like you need to be able to be like face to face with that person, especially our spouse, because there are definitely things that we can read the wrong way that like, if you read it with one sense, it may have not even meant to been offensive, but if you would read it in a way that it does, it's just, there's just kind of like that, I don't know, open area of, I don't know, kind of a danger zone there.
Yeah,
with the
like
text
you were talking
messaging.
about how much of our communication is nonverbal earlier. Text messaging, you don't get any of that. Sarcasm doesn't come across. Like, why would you say that?
Right.
So yeah, that's a great point. And people are going to have different skills and different ways of communicating. I know a couple different people that their ability to take their thoughts and speak them out is not as good, but they can sure write them down in a beautiful way. And maybe that needs to be the case too. Like, listen, baby, I'm not getting my words out here, how I feel. Can you just give me some time? I'm literally going to write you out how I feel, and then you can read it. We'll take some time here. And so that you can get out how you're feeling.
Yeah, I think too, and I know we're going to talk about kids in a little bit, but as parents, let's not hide our disagreements, and obviously we want to do them in a healthy way, but kids need to see us have these hard conversations. This is how they learn to be husbands and wives someday. So if we always take the conversation, the difficult conversation, and we don't have it in front of our kids, or we don't disagree in front of our kids, obviously we don't want to have a life full of strife, but they need to see us model how to problem solve in our relationship. So, I mean, like, it doesn't necessarily have to be, Ozzie and Harriet, where everything's just perfect. Like, life is real, and we need to teach our kids how to do that. And the best way to do that is to model that for them.
That's good.
So,
and when we talk about communication, the odds are pretty good that some point or another we're going to get into a situation that we disagree vehemently. Listen, never raise your voice.
yeah.
Never say 4-letter words ever. Well, how can I stop it? We just don't do that. We don't do that. And if it gets to that place, take a break. Hey, let's come back here in about an hour. You go pray. I'll go pray. We'll come back here in about an hour. Because once you start going down that road, it seems like you try to, not people, but they kind of try to up the ante every time. Like, once again, back to that DEFCON 1, DEFCON 2,
Right.
I'll show you. No, we always keep it informational. Here's how I feel. As chill as we possibly can, because all those emotions do is they tend to just set the other person off in a way that's just, it's not healthy. So never arguing, like explosive arguing, always keeping it down as much as you possibly can. And once again, our kids need to see that on some level. This is how we disagree. Not throwing stuff, never throwing stuff. That's not a spirit-led person. We got to get where our spirits are in charge, not in the flesh. Now, you might feel tempted to do so, but we're just not giving into that temptation. We're going to stay in the Spirit and be led by the Spirit.
Yeah, and I think, too, more information is always better than less information. So, if you're going to be gone, I mean, we don't, keep track of each other, but just hey, I'm not going to be able to call tonight, or I'm going to be late to work, or whatever. Those kind of communications will definitely be helpful for your spouse, even if it's not a big deal. Just let them know. Hey, I'm going to go to the bank, and then I'm going to do this and that. Letting people know is just, I don't know, common courtesy.
Yeah, that's good.
So
there was an article I read, I don't know, several years ago about Disney and Disney World, etc. when you get off any bus, there's always someone there explaining what to do next. And they explained at Disney, there's somebody telling you what the answer to the question you have not even asked yet. So you get off the bus, and you're like, where am I going to go? There's already somebody, because you're thinking, where am I going to go? And where's the bathroom? Where's the tickets? Where's the bathroom? There's somebody going, right down this way. The tickets and bathrooms right down this way. And like literally before you even got the words out, they kind of preempted
Answer,
what your question might be. I think that's a great way to approach your relationships with just about everybody, actually. If you're going to be wondering where I'm at, I'm going to preemptively just tell you, I'm headed out. Don't worry about me. I'm going to go get some groceries, but you can help me get them. I'll text you when I leave the grocery store so you can help me bring them back in the house.
Yeah.
Hey, that's like a very nice way to communicate it. No emotional stuff to it, just flat, here's what we're doing. And then that person can, of course, work their schedule around or however it works.
Yeah, and I think too, communication, when we talk about communication, we obviously talk about we think of those arguments or those disagreements, but telling your spouse that you appreciate them, shooting them an I love you text, that's a huge thing. I know that, I don't know, it was probably some comedian that, said well, the day I married her, I told her I loved her, and if it changes, I'll let her know. That's not super romantic, guys. Let's kind of love each other, and I think you talked a couple sessions ago about how, do what you did at the beginning. Obviously we didn't have text messaging when we were together, but there's lots and lots of notes I used to write in high school. But send a little note or just tell them you appreciate them or thank them for something or, that line of communication is awesome as well. We don't want to just talk up to each other when there's a disagreement. We want to connect with each other on another level too. So
it was explained this way in a book. The author eludes me. It's right on the tip of my tongue. Anyway, he was talking about how when it comes to relationships, marriage relationships primarily, it's like a bank account that you put in and then you get back out. And there's deposits and withdrawals. And I just really liked that Ed Cole. That's it.
Okay.
And so, I think that's a great example of what we need to do. You're just putting in there, I love you, I'm for you, I'm with you. And now there might be a time I need your help, I'm really discouraged, and you're pulling that money out of the account,
right.
But it's been put in there first. If you just pull it out and you've not put anything in there, and everybody's just pulling out of accounts that they've not placed anything into, well, of course you withdraw, and it's costly, right? You've ever withdraw money or overdrafted.
Bounce
some check. It gets expensive fast. Same way with relationships. So you're just putting in there, and my encouragement would be, if you're wondering when to do it, whenever that person crosses your mind, that's when you do it.
Yeah.
Stop, man, I was a great date we had last night. That was great. Our date last night was awesome. I love you. There it is. The thought came through, and you're just firing it off to make sure that how they feel, that how you feel about them is being done.
Yeah.
I think this is a great thing to do, by the way, with anybody. When the Holy Spirit
Yeah.
lays someone on your heart and you're thinking about them, they're dealing with this sickness or they're dealing with the loss of a loved one, and they're fire it off I'm praying for you right now. Stop and pray for them, and then send them a little text and be led by the Spirit in that way. And kind of put the money in on the front side.
Yeah, that's good. I know one more thing that I want to go over, and this might be the last part of the communication, but the idea of having the hard conversations on the front side is really, really nice. When we first got married, we talked about, this is what our budget is, and that it's always nice to have a budget idea, not after I've bounced the checks. Have those hard conversations, not in the crisis. Have the hard conversations before that happens, so then you don't have to be all emotional about it. So, just have those hard conversations. I guess I'm not sure what ones are, but if you are I'm really looking to another job, I'd really like to move this way. Let's not do that when you get the opportunity to move to a different town. Let's have that on the front side and be I'd really like another opportunity to move to a different town. That way you can kind of talk through those things.
Yeah, that's good. So many times those hard conversations come up, the thing explodes, some situation, crisis happens, and now we're talking. But because of the crisis, there's all this emotion that didn't need to be in there in the first place. So even if you're just off, you and I like to do motorcycle rides through the country time when the weather's nice, and So that's the kind of time when you would just talk about those kinds of things. Maybe you would have you're enjoying the moment, but you're like, hey, let's make sure our budget's good, right? Yeah, it's pretty good. We probably need to save a little money. And then there's no emotion about it. It's not difficult. It's
Right.
because you're in a totally right space mentally to make those kinds of decisions.
Absolutely. I mean, even with kids, like we talked about how we were going to raise our kids before we had kids. And so the nice thing is, it's like, okay, like, if he believes in this, but I believe something different, let those things be resolved on the front side, not in the middle of it. And sometimes it has to be in the middle, but, having those hard conversations on the front side sometimes is a little bit easier.
Even if you don't necessarily agree on all of it, at least you would know that you disagree on some of those things ahead of time.
Yeah.
But if it's just like, well, I didn't even know you felt that way, that's never a good thing.
No.
So take those times and ask questions. What do you think about this? What do you feel about that? What do you think our life's going to be like? Or when this happens, what are we going to do? Those kind of communications are so critical.
Yeah, and I think too, make sure that the trust that you build between each other remains. He shares a lot with me. I don't feel like I need to share with all those intimate things that he's talked to me about his own weaknesses or whatever. I don't blast those to the people I work with or share those at a party or whatever. Like that's something that is between, you, and let that be that special time where you guys are, like we said, each other's safe spot. But don't use it to just talk about that person or whatever. That's the kind of stuff that really gets us kind of in trouble, I think.
And I want to drive that home. And I don't know from a female perspective or wife perspective, but I do know, and years of doing marriage counseling, if the man finally opens up and says how he's feeling, that is a special moment, ladies. And if you take that information and use it against him in some other environment, an argument 5 days later or something, he will never open up again. Yeah. If he finds out that information was somehow used against him or talked about in some other way, then you're going to be like, why does he always clam up? It's in that space right there. So my encouragement would be to be real careful about those things, because if you get your man to open up, that's a very, very rare moment. And then if it's used against him, he's very, very gun shy. And I don't know why once again, generalities, that just tends to be how it is with the guys.
Yeah. And I think that we just need to be respectful of each other. I would not want Heath sharing all the stuff that I talk about with his friends. And I want to treat him the way that I would want to be treated. So we want to just make sure that is kind of that sacred time. And God meant for it to be sacred. That's, that's one of the reasons why he created marriage in the first place, is to be able to have that person to dream with and to cry with and to laugh with. And I think that a lot of times we are tempted to kind of go out of the relationship and overshare a little bit. And so I just think we need to be careful about that, especially as women. So
that's good. And I mean, this could be a thing about all humans, honestly.
Right.
I just know it from my own male perspective.
Yeah.
Let's make sure we got everything covered here for our last part of our communication. Know each other's one last thought. Knowing each other's communication styles, being okay with that. There are some people who want to, this would probably be me, I want to deal with it, go face into it, and other people, and we actually both tend to be kind of like that, but some people, the one wants to go towards it, the other one wants to kind of ignore it. You're going to have to find out where that other person's at. Some people want to talk a little bit, take 24 hours, talk a little bit more, maybe because of how they were raised or whatever. It's got to be done different. And you're going to have to just recognize how your spouse does that, and then go, okay, let's continue this tomorrow. We'll talk a little more about this. We're in no pressure, no rush. And then, or it's like, no, let's just get this done. So you have to know how the other person kind of works. Some people, when it gets heated because of maybe how they were raised, they back out of that. And other people, when they're heated, they want to kind of go towards it, make sure everything's worked out. Anyway, we're going to have to know those things about each other.
Yeah, and I think too, we are not all 100% perfect. So there are areas in your life and our own communication skills that we need to allow God to be the Lord of that and to kind of just encourage us. I know that I am not super confrontational, but there are times when God just makes me brave enough to say exactly what needs to be said, not in a harsh way, because I would probably prefer to be the ignoring kind. But you know what? There are times when like God is changing me, and it might be my personality style, it might be my communication, it might even be the way I was raised, but God is challenging us to be closer to Christ, to be more like Christ every day. Sure. So we need to make sure that we are continually allowing God to challenge us and lean into those challenges, especially through the communication with our husbands and our wives.
And give a lot of grace.
Yeah.
Give a lot of grace. On the fronts ahead of time, just like know that person's not going to say it right. Know that there's a lot of things that are going on and just we're gonna give a lot of grace. That goes a long way.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Well, that wraps up session 3. Thank you guys so much. Hopefully that helps you in your relationships and just helps you grow a little bit.